The 25th Amendment was officially added to the Constitution in February of 1967. It is comprised of 4 sections, each one with its own unique purpose. Firstly, let's talk about Section 1 of this amendment. In case of the removal of the President from office or of his death or resignation, the Vice President shall become President. What this means is that if a President were to suddenly become seriously ill, die, or resign, the Vice President would assume the President's position, allowing the country's executive branch to continue without much of a stutter. When presidents had died in the past, the Vice President had assumed his position, but that was based more on tradition than law. The first section adds this tradition to the Constitution and also declares that the Vice President can assume power even if the President is not dead, which is useful for problems like that of the Woodrow Wilson presidency, where Wilson became completely unable to lead the nation but remained the President anyways because he didn't die. Now, we can cover Section 2. Whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the Vice President, the President shall nominate a Vice President who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both houses of Congress. This section of the amendment actually came into play during the Nixon presidency when his Vice President Spiro Agnew quit because of scandal and tax evasion. Under Section 2 of the 25th Amendment, Nixon was able to work with Congress in order to get his new Vice President, Gerald Ford. Then, when Nixon resigned, Ford stepped up to be the President and was able to choose his Vice President, Nelson Rockefeller. Now, Section 3. Whenever the President transmits to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the Vice President as acting President. What this means is that, if the President ever feels incapable of fulfilling their duties, they can write an official declaration to the Senate and the Speaker of the House in order to step down. While they are gone, the Vice President will take over. If the President ever feels ready to return, they can write another declaration and re-obtain their position. Section 3 of the 25th Amendment is used in the Supreme Court case Clinton v. Jones. Paula Jones was attempting to take Bill Clinton, who was the President, into a civil lawsuit for sexual harassment. Clinton wanted to dismiss the lawsuit on the grounds of presidential immunity. The court referenced the 25th Amendment, stating that the 25th Amendment was adopted to ensure the continuity in the performance of powers and duties of the President. This meant that there was no reason for the President to not be involved in a civil lawsuit. If he was going to be unable to run the country during the lawsuit, he could always step down and let the Vice President take over. The court ended up unanimously ruling that Clinton did not have presidential immunity. Now, the 4th section. The 4th section of this amendment is very long. So here's a brief synopsis. If the Vice President can get a majority of the Cabinet to write a formal declaration to Congress that states that the President is unfit for the job, the Vice President will immediately become the President. The President can then immediately write to Congress with a rebuttal and become President again. If this happens, the Vice President can try to get the President out of office one more time, and Congress then has 21 days to decide if the President should be kicked out of office. These 4 sections make up the 25th Amendment. And through an understanding of these 4 sections, it is easy to see why the 25th Amendment is the most important amendment that currently exists. It is the glue that holds the executive branch together, keeping capable people in charge and getting rid of those that cannot fulfill their duties. It creates checks and balances between both the President and Vice President, and it finally gives justification to the Tyler precedent. If you are still unconvinced, imagine a world where there is no 25th Amendment. If the president were to fall into a coma, the entire executive branch would come screeching to a halt and soon the entire government would be left in complete disarray. If this happened near the beginning of the president's term, the US would effectively be trying to function without a president for up to 4 years. Now imagine a president is elected that cares nothing for the people. The vice president would not be able to kick this president out of office and the entirety of the country would suffer. A world without the 25th Amendment is a world that lacks order when it needs it most. For the 25th Amendment is a champion of order, amidst a time of crisis.